We have a 4-year update on my Philodendron species affinity saggitfolium, which is growing right here. I've made a few videos previously on this plant. I have a plant story on the origins of this plant and how it came to be in my collection, which is just a cute little story. And then I also have a 3-year update, which was filmed in February of last year. It is now June the following year, so we have the 4-year update. So if you're interested in getting all of that background on this lovely philodendron tree that I have, that you can go back and watch those videos first in detail. But I will give you just a brief little summary of those and how this plant came to be in my collection. We are going back to February 2020. My husband and I were getting married in Italy. Yes, it was immediately before COVID in Italy. And we stayed, and my family were staying at an Airbnb, and I saw this amazing philodendron outside that Airbnb. I will insert a photo here, and it was huge, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And there was even, I think, some variegation on one of the leaves, which really interested me. It was not something I'd seen before, particularly in that area, and this garden as well was absolutely beautiful. So the host of the Airbnb didn't speak much English, but we did kind of do our thing of communicating in some way about her giving me a cutting, which she agreed to. And I think she wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it or why I wanted to cut her plant, but I ended up bringing it back with me. And I really like this because it's kind of like, you know, a memory of that time. And as the plant grows, it's just such a nice cute memory to have. I think it's cool to have the plant kind of as a symbol of that as well. So it clearly means a lot to me. When I first brought it back, I decided to try to root it in water. It was well dried up by the time I got home. And this took a really long time. Like, I'm talking exceptionally long time, like possibly even close to a year. I'm not quite sure. But many months of absolutely nothing happening. Eventually it did start to grow some fluffy roots, and that was exciting. The first leaf it put out did look a bit malnourished and a bit wonky, I think because it hadn't had any nutrition at all. It was just growing in water for all of that time. And so then I potted it up, and after that it kind of really took off. The roots of this plant are really chunky. They're really juicy and big. The aerial roots are the same. And it's been growing really happily ever since. We moved to this house in January 2022, I believe. And it has been in this corner the whole time. It has a lot of kind of upward growing space. I'm going to pull it out in a minute to show you. But it does have a branch in there to kind of stabilize it. About 1.5 years ago, I uppotted it to this quite large pot, and it's been doing really well in that. It seems really happy. And last year, the biggest leaf was just under 40 centimeters, I believe. I've just measured the newest leaf here, and it's 43 centimeters, so not a massive jump. But we're still in the big leaf zone. I mean, really, it's coming up to 0.5 meter, so it's pretty big leaf wise for me. They're really long leaves, really elongated. They have the 2 kind of ears, lobes, and they're really beautiful. And these new leaves really resemble the ones that I saw in this big tree outside of the Airbnb in Italy. So I'm really happy with how it's been growing. So let me pull it out and we can talk about how it's been growing. In my last 3-year update, I did go through kind of basic care for this plant, which really is so minimal. I might as well just run through it quickly again for consistency, but honestly, I water this plant not very often, probably every 2 weeks, 2 weeks plus maybe, because the pot is so large. Now, as the roots have become established in that, maybe it dries out a little bit more and I could up the frequency with that, but It's still really happy. I fertilize it like I do all my other plants. I do wipe the leaves down maybe once or twice a year. I haven't done it for this video, so I hope that they're not too dirty. But pest wise, I've never had any pest issues with this plant. I don't believe so anyway. We may have had thrips, or it may have been suspected to have thrips when I had a big infestation a couple of years ago, but to my knowledge it hasn't had anything. I could be wrong on that. If you've watched previous videos, I'm not quite sure, but to my memory I can't remember any big infestation of anything anyway. I do not propagate it, I do not cut it, I let it do its thing. And honestly, I find that is one of the most important things when you're trying to grow large climbing plants, in particular Philodendron. When you cut them back, you're kind of stunting growth, you're kind of offsetting the balance there, I find, and the energy gets redirected into kind of healing that wound, and the next leaf will not be as big, in my experience anyway. So lighting wise, it's not very picky about lighting. It probably does get, as you can see, these Sansi lights shining on it. They're quite a recent addition, but I did have kind of lower quality, lower power lights here in that corner previously as well. But the light levels are not, I mean, they're higher now, but before, over the last 2 or 3 years, it hasn't been very, very high. It's really been medium indirect light, and it's not very picky with that, I find. There's a lot of the leaves that are in complete shade as well behind here. Totally fine, seems to have no issue with that. I think it kind of resembles the type of woodland, forest floor and canopy type habitat that this plant would typically grow in. So yeah, it seems pretty happy with that. As far as the name of it, this has been a topic of speculation for a long time, but we've really settled on it being a species affinity saggitfolium. Species affinity kind of just means that you're not entirely sure about the exact species, and I don't know if I ever would know unless it flowered, which I think is quite unlikely in this indoor environment. So you can say affinity, like it has an affinity to a saggitfolium. It is quite like a saggitfolium, so that's what we've settled on, but I'm not 100% sure either. If you have any other questions on the care or anything about this plant, please do let me know. I will take it out now and we can have a look at her in all of her glory. But today I would also like to install at least a new stake. If you've watched my recent big stakes video, I have a stake that I'm planning to use for this. The branch that it's on, as you're going to see, is very not straight and is causing a bit of problems in terms of balance with the way the plant is growing right now, which is not good. So we're going to try and install that. I was thinking of repotting, however the plastic pots that I have are actually not bigger than the one it's currently in, so I'm not quite sure. I may have a quick check of the roots and see how they're doing. If it looks really root bound, then I may come back and revisit this when I do get a big enough pot. If the roots look okay, I might just give it a bit of a soil refresh to get some nutrients back in there, some worm castings and compost and stuff like that, to kind of just give it a refresh. But yeah, so let's look at it. It is quite hard to get this all in a frame that looks okay, but we will try. So as soon as I move some of these away, you'll be able to see her in all of her glory. this is her really pulled out. Yeah, I mean, big, quite big, almost as tall as me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 leaves. Whoa. Not the most stable, like I said. We have plenty of extra floral nectaries, if they are showing up on camera. We have plenty of extra floral nectaries, really common on the new growth as well, all along the sheath. Also the new leaf there. We often get them on the older leaves as well. Area of roots, nice, thick and juicy. So it's growing above the branch that it has, but as you can see, if I show to the back, there is a quite significant lean back in this branch that is making it quite unstable. So I do have it leaning against the wall, I guess, and that kind of helps, but yeah, it's not, as it gets taller and taller, it's not going to support that whatsoever. So that needs to be fixed, but it will be fixed. So let's try and get this stake in and see how easy that's going to be. From my memory as well, this branch also bends within the pot, so that's going to be a bit difficult. First things first. Oh, that was... Oh, the weight of this. This is much trickier than the pedatum, because this is significantly heavier. So So I'm really holding all the weight of this. My arm is already tired. Now, I can feel that this branch has roots growing into it, possibly. But I did get it out. Oh my gosh, it's bending so much. Okay, let's pray that this just very easily. Okay, I've definitely broken some roots there, but kind of had to get this straight. It's almost at the top of the branch already. Okay. These are turning out to be much easier though to attach than I always anticipate, I think. The Velcro is on enough. I can breathe a little bit. The stem of this is really so thick as well. It's probably, and it's getting thicker, especially the last two internodal spacings are probably about 2 centimeters thickness. And down here it's like 1 centimeter. So that's a sign of, I guess, your plant maturing and trying to have more support for bigger leaves, which is great. Now I might use some string for the lower down parts because they're a bit further away from the pole. But yeah. None of the aerial roots had attached to that branch. I think that these aerial roots really wanted to be horizontal. Some of them went back down into the soil, but yeah, a lot of the older ones just dried up because they weren't being used for anything. I think the plant could tell. And I mean, some of them grew on the wall behind, which I had to remove because we are renting. But yeah, I'm happy with that. So if we turn it around, it's just a little bit more stable. I think with refreshed soil and a bit of watering, that will really kind of solidify this in a bit. So I'm going to bring you a bit closer and see if we can get a look at these roots without breaking this whole entire plant. Use this spoon. It's definitely roots, yeah, around the edge. That's okay. I'm just a bit concerned about finding a pot that's actually bigger than this, because this was the biggest they had at the time anyway. Soil is quite loose at the top, but I find that always is. It's not necessarily an indicator that it's not rooted down below. But what could be done is, even if I don't get a bigger pot, I could just refresh soil at the bottom and have the soil level higher up, which is most likely what I'm going to do today, but I might have to use my feet to keep this pot down. But the roots look healthy to me, they look good. What I'm going to do is, now, which you can't see, I'm not going to fully pull it out because I think I might not get it back in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put fresh soil around here, then I'm going to lift it up so that kind of mixes down to the bottom, and then I'm going to top it off. So So let's push this back into place. Look how straight it is. I am loving these stakes, guys. If you can find something similar in your area, branches do work quite well, but they have a limit. When the plant gets this big, you need something quite wide and straight. And it is difficult in my experience to find, oops, just kind of snapped part of an area root there. It is difficult to find that in the wild, you know, a really couple of meters long, perfectly straight. Nature doesn't really work that way. So as they're getting bigger, I'm either using the cork bark or a stake. So I'm very happy with that. Some extra nutrients for the rest of this summer's growth. These leaves are all going to face down again in a couple of days. Yeah, and it's refreshed. I'm happy that it's not super root bound, like it will still have a good another year in that pot, maybe even more. So yeah, very, very happy. So that is it for this video, the 4-year update on my Philodendron species affinity saggitfolium. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by giving it a like, a comment, or even subscribe if you want to see future videos. These are all fantastic free ways to support me and the channel. I mean, we may as well make it a yearly update at this stage. What I'm really excited for is the next growing situation that this plant will be in. Whatever our next house is or whatever, I just think it will thrive. My plan is kind of to have it a bit more as a standalone feature. That's quite difficult in this one room with all of my largest plants in this room. They do need to be bunched together, and while that looks lovely, this is such a spectacular plant, and I think that she deserves her own little area. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Bye!